All right, so recording is already started, but hello everybody, welcome. Well, not everyone's here, but anyways, Scott, it's been,
Ah,
yeah, it's been. I'm trying to think. The last time that we actually had a sit down recording was 2014 or 2015. It's been like that long ago since the last recording. But how are things with you, man?
damn. They're good. I was trying to remember when talking to Katie earlier today, and I was like, yeah, it's been like 4 years, 5 years, maybe. So a lot longer than I expected. But no, so in that time, obviously we've still, communicated through Facebook messages,
Mhm.
and obviously I just saw you at Southeast Game Exchange. So it hasn't been 8 or 9 years since the last time we spoke. but
But yeah, that's the one thing that I've been like just seeing, like you just still posting stuff occasionally on Facebook, and you're still doing the bird watching and also helping out with Katie. Which, by the way, like how's she been as of late?
She's good. I mean, she's been at the zoo where she's worked now for over a decade. I think between actual working and volunteering there, it's 12 or 13 years or something like that. So that's
Wow.
been, her life. It's a very tasking job, and it's a lot of hours. So it's when she's there, she's fully into it. And obviously, when she gets home, she's usually exhausted. And then I drag her out to like go to nature parks or go do something, and she's like, I'm so tired. So it's a constant like balance between
Mhm.
those two worlds.
It's the constant struggle of having a husband and wife relationship. And the one thing that always got me, like before we started to talk to each other online, whenever you would do those midnight releases, because I know that you mentioned about her just like working like late hours and she'd just be like knocked out on her bed. And then all of a sudden you bring in this like big ass box and just like lay it on top of her, and she's not sure what the hell to think about.
Yeah, I get a lot of messages even to this day from people, or just when I meet them in person, that go, I love those midnight release videos, and Katie's expression on her face or reaction, whatever, is always great. And then they go, were most of those fake? And to be honest, no. I mean, there were a couple that ended up having to be like, hey, let's retake that. Or the obvious ones were like the last two I ever did were the PS5 and the
Mhm.
Series X mid midnight releases. They didn't come out at midnight. It was literally
Mhm.
during the pandemic. They came out at 10 a.m. or whatever when the store opened. So, but when I got home with them, clearly she was awake. Now, she usually takes a nap at like
Mhm.
around 11 a.m. or so on days that she's off, because she gets up so early and she kind of takes like an hour nap. So she was kind of sleepy, but she wasn't fully asleep for those. But the
Mhm.
the rest, the ones that literally came out at midnight, she was always in bed because she has to be up for the zoo at 5 o'clock in the morning. So those were all real reactions of Katie at 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning, being woken up by me putting a PS4 or a Final Fantasy release or something, that just came out
Mhm.
on top of her.
Yeah, and that's the other thing I remembered is like you got like a lot of views whenever the PS4 and Xbox One midnight launches came out, because those were like some of the first real ones that you put out that got like a couple of 100,000 views or something like that. And it's like that, damn, that's something
Yeah,
unbelievable to see on your channel.
I think it's still to this day it's my number one viewed video. I still have never had one single video go over 1 million views. Like
Mm.
I just have this curse where I just can't seem to quite reach that. But I think it's Call of Duty Black Ops 3
Oh
midnight
wow.
release, and that one's at like right around 800,000. That's my, like I said, my number one viewed video. But I don't know why that particular one. Just it hits the right little stream of the algorithm, and it lasted like months, kept climbing and climbing and climbing. But yeah, like you said, the PS4, the Xbox One, and then there's a couple other, like, I think game release ones that
Mhm.
did pretty well, maybe right around like 100,000 or so. But yeah, they were literally like, I love those videos because I worked for GameStop for over 20 years, and I could go in and, at least I'm not filming anything that a customer can't see. So it's not like I'm, filming trade secrets or behind the scenes stuff. I'm just filming, hey, I'm picking up this game. Here's some cool promo items, or here's some shirts that came out, and then quickly race home with the item, right as I get it, and film a little funny thing with Katie, and then edit it. And it was like, it was like a fun race and a challenge to get it up, as close to the release. Usually, like I said, it was usually around 1 a.m. by the time I could get it really edited real quick. And they were only like 5-minute videos. Some were maybe a little bit longer, like closer to 10 minutes or so.
I know that you're getting back into the whole YouTube thing now, and I'm pretty sure that some of the stuff that you're just now learning to use as a way of like editing the content up, were you using Windows Movie Maker for like a long period of time? Because I know those intros were like very basic text and like those zoom in shots. Because I remember using that.
What are you talking about? They were masterpieces. Quit lying. To be 100% honest, I mean, up until I just came back 3 months ago, every single video I ever put up was either edited with Windows Movie Maker or it wasn't edited at all. So, I mean, that lasted the entire time, like I said, up until... And then recently, when I just came back making content, the only reason why I came back is because I had, support with some of my friends locally, Thomas and Dave, who wanted to, make some videos and maybe help promote like Thomas's store, Bonfire Games, or Dave just was like, hey, maybe we can go to some conventions and, get a free booth, or something like that, if we do some YouTube stuff again. And then the big help really came from our mutual friend Eddie, who originally wasn't going to be a part of this at all. And then we were like, well, when we're filming, because I started filming a show called Retro Hunting Showdown, which I'll talk about maybe later more in detail. Sure. But when we were filming that, it was going to be inside Thomas's shop in his store, and we were like, well, who's going to film like while we're doing it? Because we all three wanted to be on camera. And I was like, I don't know. And he goes, well, my friend Eddie, is pretty good with that kind of stuff. And we asked, like, hey, would you mind it? And he's like, no. And then he brings like lighting gear and 2 cameras and all that. And I'm like, what the hell's going on? And I'm like, I was expecting to set up a cell phone, and film. So it took some dialing in and some smoothing out of like, from the stuff he does himself in his like, day-to-day job, and then like bringing it into the YouTube world of the way I like kind of film. So there was a lot of like tweaking that went along with the first, couple videos, but he now edits every video that we do. He films everything except for basically some of the hunting footage, because he doesn't go out hunting with us. So like we're filming that. Thomas is filming that. So if it wasn't for Eddie, I would not be on YouTube right now, because unfortunately I don't have, the time or drive or just interest in solo doing it all like that, like I used to, because it's a burn and a grind. And I was like, if I'm going to do it, I need help. So now we basically, we're equal partners with this channel. Everything that we're doing is, if he's editing, I'm editing with him, meaning like I'm sitting there making decisions, of what we want to do with it. If we're filming, obviously we're both there. So we're both putting in, the same amount essentially. So now I essentially share, the channel with Eddie, because he's such a big part of it.
Oh, I gotcha. Yeah, that makes it a lot easier, because I know that, I think it was like around 2019, and I think that was around when you were doing Retropalooza, and I think that was like the very last video game sellers that you like physically edited, like put out by yourself. But as far as like the amount of like ideas that get thrown out between you, Eddie, and the rest of the gang, like, where does like the thought process go for, like, let's say you want to go to like this one convention, but everybody else can't go with you? Like, how does that usually go for you guys?
So, I mean, we're still very new with, all of this, because it was in April, I think, was when the actual conversation came up, and it was Dave who was like, you ever think about maybe doing some more videos? And I was like, it's been 2.5 years.
Hmm.
I mean, I don't know. I've never say no. Like, I hate when people say, this channel's dead. This guy, and I'm like, unless I literally made a video saying I'm never doing anything again, it's not dead. But so I was like, I don't know. I could come back, but I was like, I just don't want to do it by myself. I can't. I have no interest in doing it by myself. So that's kind of where that began. And as for it's scheduling, yeah, it is tough. It kind of comes down to I'm more like if they're available, or if Dave was, he was like, hey, how about we see about going to Southeast Game Exchange? So then I took that and kind of rolled with it and made that trip, happen in the sense of like, hey, well, what would that look like with the four of us traveling, hotel, the booth setup, we had to figure all that stuff out. But luckily, they're all very easy to get along with people, and they're understanding, and they're also like very good at communicating for the most part. I mean, no one's perfect, but so that's kind of like what situations like this need is just like, is this going to work for everyone? If not, how do we make it work? Or maybe we just don't do this one. I mean, we've only done technically we'll be doing 4 conventions total for this year, I guess you would say. And that the last one, we've already done 3, and the last one would be coming up with Really Rad Weekend in November, which is in North Florida, Destin, Florida. And yeah, so that's the last one essentially we're doing this year.
I didn't know if I was going to be able to make it to Southeast Game Exchange, but after seeing that you got announced for the show, I had to talk to Austin. It's like, if there's like an extra spot, I'd be willing to join you guys. And so, yeah, that interaction between the both of us, I was really happy to be able to finally come in and say hi. So, yeah, be able to to be able to see the booth coming into it, like, I would assume that like the amount of inventory that you guys are able to put out at a time while you're still able to sell your stuff, I don't know if it would be as hectic as it would be originally, but how does the thought process of like whenever you guys decide like what from the store to put out and then you still having to be able to have enough room to put your things out, does it seem like there's like a conflict of interest at times, or is it just like pretty much everybody's on even level?
So that's a great question, actually, because for me, when I used to, I was available to go set up at most Retropaloozas, and that's the convention that's run by Jay from the Game Chasers out in Texas, and he does 2 of them, the Dallas area and the Houston area each year. And when I would go out there, up until, I mean, the last one I did was actually Houston in 2022, so I was there fairly recently. But I would have 2 booth spots, so 2 10-foot booth spots, so 20 feet, and I would make this big letter M, and I would always tease, it's like, I don't know if it's an M or an E or an upside-down W, like however you want to look at it, but I would always make the same shape out of tables, and I would bring, a full van's worth. And now, obviously, if the whole idea is, well, if we even have that much space, which we might not even have that much space depending on the convention or whatever, I knowingly need to have room for them because it needs to be worth it on their end too. So it kind of depends. We can sort of break it down in the sense of like who's all, what is everyone pitching in here? Like, are they going to be the travel, the hotel, the booth space, all that kind of stuff, and we just sort of literally put it right out there. It's like, all right, well, if you want to come along, we have this much room for you. You don't have to pay for anything. Or hey, if you want this much room, we just literally try to make it as fair and as even as possible, for everyone that's involved. So like, but on my end, I'm a very easygoing person. I have very I guess principles that I like to follow that are my personal things, but I'm very easygoing in the sense of like, if it makes sense, if I'm going to lose 15 feet of space or 10 feet of space or whatever, where I could bring more stuff, but if I'm going to have Eddie there to film and I have people there to help drive, then I don't care. Like, I'm going to lose that space and I don't sell as much, whatever. It benefits in other ways. So
yeah, and it definitely helps everybody else out at the booth as well, because you're still technically advertising for a store that you're friends
Yeah.
with, and also they're being grateful enough to like film content for your channel. And I guess the only other thing I was going to ask is like when did you first learn about the store? Did they just like reach out to you, or was it just something that you came across it like one day when you were just driving about and it's like, you know what, I want to check that store out one day?
So specifically talking about Thomas's shop, Bonfire Games, which is in Tampa, Florida. I've known Thomas now for let's say 4 years, somewhere around there. And he originally was working at a store that I frequented, did business with. He was just an employee there. And at that time, I was actually still making YouTube content. So this was pre-2019 or 20, whatever it was. And he was kind of just getting back into video game, like, collecting. He had a list of his childhood games that he wanted. He was not selling games by any means or anything like that. He was just like, you know, hey, I see you go garage sailing. You know, you seem to get some cool stuff. Could I come along? And I've had many people in the past, like videos. I used to have tons of different people come out and go garage sailing. So I was like, yeah, for sure, come out. And that is how it really began for him. And I tease and joke that, you know, it's all my fault that he ended up getting into buying and selling games and now opening a store. Clearly, he used to say, I'm thinking about opening a store. And I was like, don't do it, man. That's a terrible idea. There's too many game stores in our area. You should just not do that. And he's like, yeah, but I want to do it. It'll be fun. So basically, to answer the real question is, I've known about that store before there was ever even a store. It was like the first thought in his head, and just watched it grow and watched him, you know, like build it up. And it's been open for a year and a half now, so it's still a new store, but it's doing really well in the sense of he has a good staff, people that really get along with each other, and obviously we film Retro Hunting Showdown, you know, the showdown portion of it. So it's been good, and I think, you know, that store is in a place in our area, at least, that it's not overrun with store traffic. I mean, more like too many stores, but we have 10. I can instantly think of 10 video game stores within a 30-minute drive of our area, and that's me not even thinking of other ones that I know are out there. So there's probably about 12, 13, 14 game stores within a very small radius in like the Tampa Bay area.
Ain't that something? And that's not even counting GameStops. That's like just independent mom and pop shops.
Yeah, if you did the GameStops, there's another 6 that I can instantly think of. So yeah, you're already at 20 video game stores. Jeez. And then you can start kind of then maybe throwing in like other things that would be similar, like some comic book shops, card shops, you know, like nerdy stores, that kind of thing. It's I don't know what it is about this area, but there's like I tour, obviously I travel, and I go to a lot of places, and there's not too many areas that I've ever like pulled up a local map and it's like, oh my gosh, there's just a plethora of choices around here. It's usually like less than 5, I would say.
Jeez, I could not imagine that, because I know that the store I used to run in Muscle Shoals for 8 years, and honestly, it's like thanks to watching your videos for like starting that out back in like 2012. But yeah, I remember it was like just only 2 video game stores in my area. But that's the other thing I could never imagine, is the amount of like competition that you have to deal with. Does it seem like for Eddie and the rest of the gang, like, does it seem like that's like one thing they always have to keep on their toes? Or is it something that they know that they're competitive enough on their pricing and trade and credit that they offer that they don't have to worry about like another store doing better than their stores do?
I would say the first, in the sense of like just like our group of people that, you know, Thomas or Eddie or whatever. Eddie he has some game stuff that is like his, and then he's gotten rid. So I would not classify him as someone that buys and sells video games. He just happened to have some stuff specifically at Southeast Game Exchange he brought along because he's like, oh, I had an extra one of these, or I modded. He does like mods and customizations of systems. So he had some things like that. He actually has an Etsy shop, which I'm not going to be able to tell you or remember what it is right now, the name of it. But he makes, he just recently started making a lot of like costume pieces for characters, specifically from one of the female characters from Tears of the Kingdom, Zelda.
Oh, nice.
And so he's growing that aspect of like, a business, I guess. And but in the sense of like pricing and competitiveness, my area, there is a lot of people. It is a very densely packed area.
Mm-hmm.
You have a massive range of class categories of like income, that kind of thing in the area. So there are some shops that are in very more high end sections of our area, and then there's some that are not. So I would say that the pricing definitely would be determined by that a lot. But in the sense of like competition, I would think that the pricing is kind of like in its own little biodomes or atmospheres. Like it's
gotcha,
like
yeah.
they don't really overlap too much. I mean, of course, this is one thing that you could just have a conversation that would never end with people, but like everyone thinks that there is a price that a game should be.
I gotcha, yeah.
That's what price charting says. It doesn't matter if I'm buying this from a pile of dirt or if I'm buying it from the most high-end, expensive game store in the world, whatever. This is what this should be. And I've learned by literally selling, I think, everywhere possible, in the sense of at least online through in the past. I don't sell online anymore, but selling stuff on eBay, selling at a flea market, doing retail game sales for 20 plus years, selling at conventions, just all these different areas. And there is no like set price, because those are all completely different atmospheres and and environments to be in. So I mean, if one thing only sells for $5 at one place, and that's because all anyone's going to pay, but at another place it sells for 10. Some people would frown upon, like, well, you should always sell it for 5. It's like, well, if I can get 10 and it sells really quick at 10, then it's a business. That's the model.
Right,
like, it's going to go for 10. So. But that's a whole other debate.
Yeah, it's really just I know the term has been repeated like constantly, but it's only just a matter of like what someone's willing to pay for the whole entire item in the end. And I mean, that's partly true, but also at the same time, like you said, is like if back in like Muscle Shoals, if I was to get like something in at like a certain amount of price, then it's like you have to still turn around and make profit enough that you're comfortable with, while the other person's fine with being able to pay for the item as well.
Yeah, and not everything you get is the same price either, especially in this business. I mean, or whatever you want, hobby. Like if you're going out to garage sales and you get something for $1, then that's great. Maybe you have a lot more wiggle room on it. But if you're buying someone's collection and you're spending $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 on a huge collection, and they obviously want 50% or 60%, or maybe, depending on what it is, more, then you don't have that same wiggle room. You have more of an urgency of like, I kind of need to make some money back on this, a little bit quicker. I can't sit on it for as long. So there's too many variables. There's a lot that determine the price and what you can sell something for personally in your own head.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, you just gotta take the bullet and just, heal up on those wounds and then come back at a later date and get the same item and get what you want out of it next time. So, yeah, that's one of the things with, without Southeast Gaming, or at Southeast Gaming Exchange, excuse me, I noticed that there were other people aside from myself, like, selling stuff at booths. I know Marcello from GameCube Galaxy, he had some things that he wanted to get. Oh, I just bumped into my mic. He wanted to get, like, yeah, I know, it's still fine. I guess still taped it up to the mic stand I have here. But yeah, Marcello wanted to get a certain video game, which I recommend anybody watching is to watch the rest of it. And he had to sell things off, and he understood, like, he had to eat what he couldn't make off of it. But at the same time, it's the same thing with vendors. And I know during Sundays is basically like a lot of people don't want to carry stuff back with them. They would rather just have a lot more money on hand. Does it seem like that's the same thing with you guys at times whenever you go to a convention, you want to get rid of some stuff, but then there's some certain things that people bring to your booth, like let's say, hypothetically, a roll of Rose or a Little Samson or stadium events, if it ever got to that point. Do you ever think in your head, yeah, I would like to get that to be able to sell back off to other people at other conventions, but I would really like to just hold on to some money? Does it seem like that's a little bit of an issue for you guys at times, or is it like a no-brainer issue?
So I can speak kind of on two different sides here.
Mhm.
One being, say, like with Thomas having a newer store, wanting to get inventory, obviously always needing inventory, that kind of thing. And then on the other side of me, where I'm on the end or the downward trajectory of having 33 years of a collection that I am now trying to slowly, piece by piece, sell off or trade off for easier to sell items, that kind of thing. So for me, I'm not necessarily like looking to drop a lot of money on really rare items these days, because I have a lot of rare things that I would like to get some money for or trade for easier to sell items. So I'm not in that same boat where maybe if someone came up to the booth 10 years ago for me, or came up to the booth now, say for like Thomas, and was like, hey, I've got, a Little Samson, and I know it's the end of the day, I just kind of want to get rid of it. Or the other way around, a lot of people come up to the booth at the end of the day and they want a bigger deal because, like you said, people don't want to carry stuff home, so they're trying to sell stuff for a cheaper price, that kind of thing. I feel like that's less and less. At least, I mean, I'm not doing conventions every week or every month, but the last few I've done, like we didn't really have a lot of Sunday last minute kind of things where people are just trying to clearance out stuff, either at our booth or coming over to be like, hey, can I buy all of this for 50% off or something? And that just might be because they.
Oh yeah. I'm
bringing things that are like that at, let's say, at Southeast Game Exchange. I have multiple games that are $1,000 or more, all my TurboGrafx stuff and complete in box Super Nintendo games. So people kind of, I get a lot of, ooh, that's amazing, how much is that? Cool, but see you later. Yeah, like, which I understand, and not everyone is looking to buy $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 single video game, but if that's kind of where I'm at now, is I'm trying to move a lot of those type of things. So Thomas, he had some pretty solid, expensive items, but he also had, some PS4 games and Vita stuff for, that kind of thing, 360 titles for $10-$20. So it's a lot easier to go like, oh, what's that $20 360 game? Yeah, how about 15? You want 12? Sure, we'll just get rid of it 12. It's harder. It's easier to do that than like, oh, that $2,000 game, I'll take $200 off. Yeah, that's still $1,800.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. True. But
that at least cleared some answers on that, because I was curious, like, how you guys usually operate for that type of convention side things, because I know that you used to do it just as your own thing, but now with like a full-on team, it's a different process. And since you talked a bit about it, because I want to like go into that next. Your video game collection, you've said that you've accumulated for like 30 plus years now, or how long has it been since?
So I say 33 years is how long I actually collected for. And some people then either think like, oh, that means you're like 60, 70 years old, or or they're confused by it. But
it's old man
for me, yeah. I just, I dye everything. This is all dyed. No, it's because from the age of about 4,
Mm-hmm.
Anything I got that was video game related, I still have to this day. So no, I obviously at 4 years old, I wasn't going out with my own money and hunting for games or buying them myself, but I still have my original Nintendo and all those games that, I first got. And then when I got my PlayStation, at the first time, which came about because we had a flood and I had insurance money as like a 13, 14-year-old kid.
Wow.
And of course I was going to go spend it on video games. And then when I got my first job and I saved up and bought a PS2, I was lucky enough that I did not have to ever get rid of anything, which I know unfortunately for a lot of people, for whatever, life happens and they had to sell it off or got stolen or lost or whatever. And they had to, start over multiple times. I did not have to do that. So, that's why, I would say at age 13, 14 was maybe when I started buying things for myself, like with my own money. And then obviously when I got like my first job at age 16, then it was just, everything. So, and just even that. So even if you don't count when I was a kid and that stuff, that is still 23 years ago from when I would have had that. So if you just want to count that, there's 23 years worth of literally personal collecting. But yeah, in February of 2022, I got off of a tour and I came home and I was a very hardcore collector where at that point I was going for every Switch game that wasn't a sports title. I'm not a complete set collector, so I can't say I'm going for every single game, but basically every game that anyone would care about, and then some for Switch, for PS4, for Vita, Xbox exclusives, all the limited run stuff, every single game the limited run put out. So I was like incredibly, and then plus retro stuff that maybe I had never found. So I was going real hard. And I would come home while I was out on tour. Katie, my wife, would go pick up pre-orders I had. My pre-order list was usually anywhere between 100 and 150 items.
Holy
consistently
cow.
for years on end, never ended.
Jeez.
So she'd pick up pre-orders while I was gone. And this particular time I came home and I went to the shop or to GameStop to pick up a bunch of pre-orders that had come out. And to be honest, it was probably like $500 something worth of games, which was very common. And I was just like, man, between my OCD level of collecting where everything has to be pristine and like no tears and shrink wrap, like that kind of thing, and the amount of time that was taking, and just the money and everything else, like at some point I'm going to stop collecting. I never thought I was ever going to collect till I was 70 years old. I never thought I was going to take my stuff to the grave. So I was like, at some point I need to stop and I need to go in another direction, because the collection got up to 25,000 items.
Wow.
And that's, game systems and paraphernalia of controllers and that kind of stuff. And then on top of that, toys and posters. And I worked for GameStop for over 20 years. I have a lot of promotional items. So, it's like I wouldn't be able to sell all of this realistically in 20 years. If I sold a single item a day, it would take me more than 20 years. So I'm like, I got to start adding to this. And I was like, I talked to Katie and I talked to a couple friends. I'm just like, some people thought I was like, they were slightly concerned when you do something for so long and then you're like, you know what, I think I need to stop. And they're like, is everything okay? Are you mentally okay? Like, and I was like, no, it's all for positive reasons. It's not like, that was another thing, is like, I didn't want it to be for negative reasons. I didn't want to get cancer or Katie get sick or something like that and then be like, well, now I need a bunch of money, or now there's, I'm not healthy enough to really do this, or something like that. And I was like, you know what, I think I would rather be in full control and still really enjoy it. I still love going game hunting. I still like technically I mean, I'm still buying video games. Buying video games and putting them in a game room is not the same as going garage sailing and being like, oh crap, Pokemon for $1? Yeah, I'm going to buy that. That's two different worlds. But so I stopped adding to the collection and just keeping stuff for that reason about a year and a half ago, and ever since then it's I have people come over and buy stuff. Like I said, I don't sell online, but I've taken it, chunks to conventions last year and a half, and I love every aspect of the hobby that because I've done it all. I've collected for 3 decades, and I've sold for over 2 decades. And I loved like the piecing together of things, and the OCD part being, this card's in better shape than this one, but this manual's in better shape, and putting it all together. And I like selling and trading games. Like I've always enjoyed that aspect too. The big argument that a lot of people have with the hobby is like the pricing of things when stuff goes up and down and it's too expensive and it's whatever. I don't think people realize that if the stuff didn't have any actual value, like if every video game item was $5, the collecting aspect, making videos, hunting for it, all these kind of things wouldn't be there. No one would care. If everything was $5 and was just common, there wouldn't be all of that. So while you might be upset that a game that you really would like to own is $500 and you would never pay that, if it was $5, you wouldn't even care to buy it, or you'd buy it and you'd play it, and then it wouldn't be something that you would collect the same way. Not saying you wouldn't enjoy the video game, the playing of those. That's a different thing. I mean, games you can get every single game digitally. You have no argument of, if you want to just play the game, you can either get it for free illegally, or you pay the whatever retail or wait for it to go down price. The complaint is the ownership of the physical product and not wanting to pay a lot of money for it. But that's literally a part of the hobby. That is it. Baseball cards, trading cards, comics. Yeah, comics. Freaking bottle caps. Doesn't matter. It's the same in every hobby. You collect it because it has some sort of intrinsic value.
Yeah, and that was the other thing. I honestly thought you were about to say Pogs at first, because you were saying bottle caps. And I remember looking on the other day and seeing Aaron and Ricky go to one of their swap meets and find a box full of Pogs. And it's I don't know if there's a market for that, but I used to collect those when I was a kid.
I've learned that there is a market for everything, even for things that I look at and I go, there's no way someone would pay money or collect that, and there is. And I can guarantee you there's a hardcore Pog community that if you dig deep enough, there's people going do you have that poison skull slammer with the 8-ball eyes that is gold plated? Because I will give you $10 for that if you have that one, because that was my favorite one as a kid. There's a tube of Pogs in a closet in this house. I know.
Oh, seriously?
Oh, yeah. It's Katie's. I don't know if I have Pogs anymore. My personal childhood Pogs, I can't tell you where they would be if I did, but I know Katie's are in there. Yeah, I mean, that game, like how many people actually really played it? They just collected it probably. But that hobby was as big as, Beanie Babies and every other huge thing from that era. But licensing, from all the cartoons or video games or all that kind of stuff that got put on it. I mean, I remember going to a store and buying these uncut sheets of Pogs.
Oh, when I was younger. I remember those, yeah.
And there were some lame ones. I mean, I bought the 50 United States, all the states in Pog form. I was they're uncut sheets.
Holy crap. Yeah, that reminded me of what was it when they started doing the 50 states as the back of quarters, because there were parents and grandparents trying to collect those, and then there's the things where you could put the coins in. I think my parents got me that when I was younger, but I never collected them.
Filled it all the way in.
I just kept the quarters and just like used that to buy lunch
To
for
buy stuff.
school. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah, collecting money when I was younger was not a thing, because like I knew that if I wanted a video game or something, then that would, even though I collected everything possible, collecting money was never a thing I collected. I collected fireworks. I collected Halloween candy. Like, at least to a certain extent, where it's like I didn't want it to go away. Like I wanted, we would buy a bunch of fireworks at 4th of July, and then I wanted like to have one of each in my room, very safe.
Oh
obviously,
God, yeah.
yeah. And I would create a little fireworks shop in my closet, and then I would sell them to my friends, never for real money. And I think most of the time I was like, okay, we're done playing. Give me my fireworks back. But I did, and with Halloween candy, I I'd get it home and I'd sort it all out, and I'd be like, oh, all right, cool. I got to eat. I got to keep a bunch because I only can eat these ones, because then I got to keep one of each. But, then you realize it's candy. I either got to throw it away or I got to eat it. I can't keep it around forever.
And it starts, it starts mutating into like this weird Akira little thing that comes out of your closet, and it just like starts to like smash your whole house down or something.
The candy was never kept in my closet. That stayed in either the refrigerator or yes. Food never was accumulated in the bedroom.
Never heard of anybody trying to collect just fireworks as a kid. Because whenever I think of like anything with fireworks, I think of like some episode off of The Simpsons where Bart Simpson has this like illegal like firework from Mexico that he like fires off. I'm trying to remember what episode I remember seeing that from.
Yeah, I mean, maybe there was more than one older episode that had fireworks related to it, but I remember he got like, it was some giant cherry bomb, I thought, because I know you blew
that's
up
right,
the toilet.
Man, I remember watching that like in California, and it's like daytime, and this is like over on the East Coast where it would be like 8 p.m. and it's like about 4:30 over in California, and watching that was like very weird to see that.
Those first 9 seasons of The Simpsons, I mean, like I could quote as a kid all the way up until my early teens, like every silly comment. I mean, Ralph Wiggum was like a hero in the sense of like one-liners and just funny things. But yeah, I mean, kudos to them that it's still going on. Obviously, people talk crap about the last 20 years of it basically now, but
yeah, pretty much.
I mean, it's still there. It hasn't gone away.
Yeah, I know that the movie was, I think, the last time that a lot of people said that it's like that was one of their favorite things from The Simpsons, and yeah, it's been getting shit on for a while, but it's impressive to see Fox still produce a lot of these animation projects. I know Family Guy is still going. Bob's Burgers, it feels like it hasn't even been around that long, but it's gonna seem like it's gonna get milked to death the same way too. But I don't know, I'm kind of like attracted over to Bob's Burgers a little bit more nowadays.
Yeah, I like that too, especially their Halloween episodes. I've always thought those were great. But I mean, a lot of these shows, I know I know Futurama, obviously, maybe Bob's Burgers. Sure, but a lot of these shows, were canceled at least once and then brought back on a different network or whatever, or just did poor at the beginning. So yeah, it is to see like them gain a fan base somewhere else, or like just I don't know, a streaming service or something like that, or just another network that was like, hey, wasn't it like Family Guy ended up going to like Adult Swim, and then actually
it was, yeah.
And then like they grew that from literally being canceled to merchandise and Hot Topic and all these stores, and then they were like, well, thanks for the help, and peace.
Yeah, and I think the other one was Futurama, because they put that over on the Cartoon Network and Adult Swim, and then I think it got put over to Comedy Central for a little bit, and then back over to Fox, and they did like a little bit more episodes with that, and then it eventually got canceled again, and now it's brought
And now
back
it's on
out
Hulu.
again. Yeah, pretty much. It's it goes like, well, not necessarily full circle, but it just kind of comes back around to like things don't stay dead very long if it's like a very popular project.
Yeah, the first episode Katie and I actually watched on Hulu a week ago or so, and it makes of the fact that they are a show that has been canceled 3 times now or whatever, and it is literally just a parody of that. The fact that, all right, well, let's try this again. Keep bringing us back.
Yeah, and it seems like the new season's doing well so far. I've been so busy that there's a lot of stuff in my backlog, but that is the first one that I want to try to get back to watching, because I think the last thing I watched was BoJack Horseman, and it was like my second run watching that, and it's like a personal favorite of mine on that. And I know that back on track to the collecting stuff, because it's like we just went all over the place talking about animation. But the one question I want to ask, and this could go like as long as it possibly can for like where in the next how many years, but in the next, whether it's like 5 years or 10, 15, where do you see yourself with where your collection is at, to where in like those many years down the line do you see yourself with a collection? Do you see any games at all, or do you see like no games whatsoever?
So I would say that within, I mean, I'm basically 40 years old now, almost 40, and within the next 5 to 10 years, I want to essentially, like, air quotes, retire, meaning like I would like to not have my house. I would like to, Katie and I would like to just sort of get an RV and do a ton of traveling, and then kind of have a place where we can come back to, obviously, like family home or whatever, and hang out for the holidays or whatever, but essentially not be grounded anywhere, which clearly means I can't have a ton of stuff to put in storage or to deal with. And there is no exact date on that. I'm not putting like some freaking countdown that I'm going to stress out about or whatever, but it is sooner than later. It is not when I am in my 60s. And so I feel like sometime probably before I'm 50 years old, which is only a decade away. Jesus Christ.
Holy cow, yeah.
Yeah, that I will be done, with going to garage sales. But now, granted, I say I'm done going to garage sales. I'm sure I'm still going to enjoy, like, hey, look, there's a garage sale over there. Let's drop by, but at around that point, I will most likely not be doing what I am doing right now. Because, like I said, I started this process now where I still have accumulated things, because if a deal's too good or someone's like, hey, I got a box of free strategy guides, I'm like, oh shit, I'm not going to let it go in the garbage can. I'll take it. That balance is going to be probably the first thing that has to start getting adjusted, where it's like, I can't be trying to, sell all this stuff that's in the collection, and then still, even if it's for such a good price, still be taking it upon myself, because it still has to take up space. It still has to live somewhere. So, that'll be the next big change, at some point. Again, don't know exact time, when occur, but I think that first thing will be me stopping gaining, stuff in general. And then I've never been I've never been interested in like dumping my collection, meaning like I'm not looking to sell it all at once. But at some point, it's gonna get to the point where I only have however many games that aren't the best, and that'll be when I'm like, I'm not gonna try to be getting $10 a piece for all this last bit of stuff. So I'll probably just then fold at the end. But I mean, 25,000 items is a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of stuff to deal with. And my friend Dave was just over a few days ago and made a joke walking to the game room. He goes, dude, it doesn't look any different in here to me. Like, and in fact, when he came in, there was actually like 5 boxes of things on the floor because Katie and I had filmed a video in there of a bunch of stuff I got for free from a friend that was moving. And well, I guess it was for $65 technically, but essentially it was 5 boxes of free stuff and then 1 little box of stuff I bought. And he's like, God damn, there's like, if anything, there's more items in here than there was the last time I was here. But I know, obviously, I have a weird mind where I have really good memory of where I got something, the house, like if it was garage selling, the house I found it at, the roughly how much I paid for it, all those kind of things. I'm really good at that, and I'm actually really good at like knowing when I had something. I didn't keep a data like Katie and I tried to keep a database for like a year or two, and then we were packing up a house, and then that died. That was 8 years ago. I haven't kept a price charting or any sort of account of what I have except for insurance purposes, like videos of the room and like that kind of stuff. But I know, like I have sold a lot of stuff out of there, like individual items. I mean, there's a ton of, if I could think of like DS and 3DS, I've sold a ton of that stuff. I've sold a lot of handheld systems. Things I would really like to move. If anyone's listening and wants to do some trades or deals or whatever, I'd really like to move more turbo stuff because, like, I'd by all means love to trade some turbo stuff for like easier to sell in 64 games, or Game Boy systems, that kind of thing. Because it's very rare. It's very expensive for the most part. And it's trying to find that collector. That one guy in Kentucky that wants that one game, that's a lot harder, especially when I don't sell on eBay. But to reel it back in here to your question, I think within 10 years, I'll definitely still be playing video games. Like that's when a new Resident Evil comes out, I will be playing it. When whatever happens with Silent Hill, when new stuff every 10 years, when they make something for that, I'll play it. There's a lot of series that I'm just, still really invested in. But I won't be collecting stuff, and the selling will keep going down and down and down just because I want to do more traveling, and I want to just kind of, experience as much as I can, not in the digital space and more of like the physical space as I get older. So that's the plan.
Yeah, that's a very long-sighted plan as well, because it's a lot to take in, considering that you're, as we talked about before, that you're just now getting back into doing YouTube stuff. And it does seem like that's the good enough plan to go forward with. And I know that a lot of people don't really see themselves doing content creating for as long as they have. But we've always seen, there's like an elderly lady talking about like Xenoblade Chronicles X recently on her channel. And we don't really think much about like us being old at all and still making videos for YouTube. But I guess since we talked about the video game stuff, where does that leave you with, like, you're still technically a roadie for Korn?
That's a terrible word. Wrong word. I say that and I joke about that. Let me actually let you ask your question. Sorry. Ask your question first.
the no word. There we go. I slapped myself for that. Anyways, with you being with the band for as long as you have and just helping out, because I guess they call you the band mother or whatever the term was, but as far as like
that's my wife.
Big ups to Katie for that one. But yeah, the one question I want to ask on that, I know that you already talked about where you want to see yourself in 10 years for the video game stuff, but where do you see yourself maybe past that 10, 20 years for helping out with Korn?
So I've worked for them in many capacities now, different capacities for 17 years. And my current position with them is I'm the band assistant is my title, and that basically is dressing rooms, food. I'm cranky, like fix this problem. It's a lot of that kind of stuff, and that's where the joke comes in with like band mom, or that's what Katie says. Like, you're like their mom. You just have to make sure that they're happy and healthy. And I've been production assistant, production coordinator. I've been just a single personal assistant for one person. I run the teleprompter on stage is my other thing that I do. So like while we're on stage, you can actually see me on stage a lot of the times, off to the side. And some people find this insanely amazing, and other people are like, yeah, a lot of bands do it. I run teleprompters for the singer so he can see where we're at in songs. He doesn't wear in-ears, which is a thing a lot of bands do. Some bands don't, and in-ears are basically like, speaker, like a fancy headphones to let you know where you're at, in the song, and to be able to hear what's going on. He uses monitors on stage, and they're a heavy metal band or a hard rock band, and they rock out and jump around and stuff. So some people go, that's crazy. That's like he's doing karaoke. And it's like, well, his way of explaining, not mine, is like he did a lot of drugs and partied a lot when he was younger. And it's sort of like, just a great mental thing to be able to look down and be like, well, what verse are we on? And to look down and see it. So that is my other job. My other aspect is doing that on stage. So I don't work in the music industry. I work for some people that happen to be in the music industry. I don't tour with other bands. The job I have is, I would call it like a friendship job. Like for the most part, it's like there are people that do this type of job that they jump from band to band to band, and it's it's hospitality essentially is kind of what it falls into. You're setting stuff up for them. You're making sure they're comfortable, that kind of thing. But for my interactions and level and job level with them, I grew up with them essentially, meaning like I was on their street team as a kid. I was offered a job at age 20 from one of the guitar players, and it just kept going and going like that. So for over half my life, essentially, I've been doing stuff for them. And I only go on the road obviously when it's them, when they're touring. I don't work for other bands, so I don't know where Korn is going to be in 10 years from now. If they'll still be necessarily all touring and making music. They seemed, we joked about, I feel like 10 years ago that like, I don't know how many more years you guys got. It's like 2 or 3. And then a decade later, it's, how many more years you got? Like 5?
Yeah, still going.
10? It just, yeah. They kind of hit like this. Their 30-year anniversary is next year in
Ain't
2024.
Wow.
From their first album, actually their 30-year really anniversary is this year because they formed in 1993. But their first album came out in 94, so next year's the anniversary. And they kind of hit this I don't know, stride or this like what would you call it, like not a heritage act. I can't really think of the term, but like legacy. That's what I'm trying
legacy
to
act.
They became a legacy act within the last, let's say, 5 to 8 years or so, and that basically just means that they can pretty much always have a gig somewhere just on their name. They will be able to headline a lot of festivals around the world because they are who they are and how long they've been out. They don't even have to make any more music anymore if they didn't want to. They still do. They still put out a friggin' album like every 2 years, roughly 2.5 years or so. Yeah, at this point, it's like hard that when you get to that sort of level of like Metallica or Guns N' Roses, and it's just you can just keep playing. They could just go until they literally can't go anymore physically. But yeah, for me, it's like this was like a test in my mind wherein I'm holding this coaster and
What
I've
the
been
hell?
playing with it the entire
I was wondering
So,
what the hell
I'm
that
sorry.
was. I thought that was a
it's
pond
just
slammer.
Yeah, it is. It's a giant slammer. I've been hiding it this whole time. No, reel back in. What was I saying? I was saying the. Oh, dang it! Where was I saying? Now I've lost myself.
You don't know exactly where in time that they would actually see it. Okay, I'm forgetting myself now.
Oh,
but, okay.
I remember. Sorry, it was last year. I was getting really in my head with sort of this question that you're saying. It's like, well, how long am I going to personally be doing this? Like, am I going to be touring? Because it is interruptive to your personal life to be like not have control of where you're going to be for months out of the year. You know, like, and me not working in the music industry means like I'm not jumping from tour to tour with all these different bands. That's not my main, not passion, but my main, job that I'm clocking in and clocking out to all the time. So I had to decide, like, I'm like, well, what is, like, I want to go on this family vacation that we've been planning for a while, and damn it, they're going to book these shows right then, and I don't know what to do. I'm like, it's a weird thing to try to go to your bosses, essentially, like, hi, I don't want to tour here. Can I just tour then and now? Like, can I make my own schedule? And even though I've worked for them for so long, it's like you always have in the back of your mind, like, they're gonna go, yeah, that's inconvenience for us. I think it's done. We're done. And I got the exact opposite reaction I feared, which I mean, I don't know, I didn't know what to expect, but they were basically like, dude, take time with your family. You have done a lot for us, and we appreciate it. But you're good. Like, you can go do your own thing. Of course I got ribbed, and made fun of or whatever. They made up a bunch of shirts that said "fuck Scott" on it for like the last show. That before, because what I ended up doing is I ended up having to take a European tour off, so I didn't do a whole run in Europe, and it was good on my end. It was rough for them without me, I guess. Not good for them, but like when they got back and I kind of heard a bunch from like the band and stuff, they were like, man, there was a lot of stuff that we needed you for, and it's great to have you back, and it's like, we appreciate it. But again, they weren't like trying to use it against me. They were like, did you have fun? We went to Katie and myself went with her family out to Yellowstone, and
nice.
It was like almost like a week and a half long trip. And then there was other things that Katie and I wanted to do. We had a trip to the Everglades planned around that, that time. So it was just really reassuring to know that I had a little bit more control in my life than I thought I did. And from here on out, it's like, I know that if I'm like, hey, I can't do this at this point, it's not necessarily the end of my options there. I could come back and, do some work for them in the future if I can't do every single show. So.
Well, that pretty much answered about everything that's out there. And as far as like just the amount of content you're putting out now, like the quality may be different, but it's still the same Scottsquatch show. So, Scott, always a pleasure. I know that we don't get the chance to like talk a lot, but to be able to hang out with you for the little time we had at Southeast Game Exchange this past year, it was always a pleasure to be able to catch up and just see how things are with you. And also for jumping in the background and just kind of like show off bombing right in the back. I didn't expect you to do that, by the way.
In that clip of Mort's garage. Yeah. I mean, real quick to tie up the YouTube aspect of what I'm doing now. Every Sunday I am putting up either a full-length video or a short. It kind of just depends on what time we have, for content or whatever, but there's something up every Sunday at noon. Every single day I am posting something, a picture or information or whatever, on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube community page, Twitter, on all of my, social things. There's at least some form of contact from me going up daily. And our new show that we started, this whole reason why I'm even back on YouTube, is called Retro Hunting Showdown. There are 3 episodes up. We are done filming the 4th. It'll be starting to be edited on Friday, and There's more Video Game Sellers episodes to come, at least 2 more by the end of this year. So there's a lot that is still happening. Again, I have no idea how long I'll be doing what I'm currently doing on YouTube. I'm doing it right now. So be happy that I'm back and doing some stuff. I'm enjoying it. And again, thank you, Eddie and Thomas and Dave, for helping with all of this, because it wouldn't be happening without them. And I really appreciate you and everyone, because the Video Game Sellers episode that just went up right before we did this recording 3 days ago is at like 19,000 plus views in 3 days, and that's incredible for my channel.
Yes, it is.
Kind of get to, so I'm very grateful to all of that. So thank you all.
Yeah, so everybody who is watching this, if you haven't had the chance, follow this man over on YouTube at youtube.com/Scottsquatch, capital S. And also follow him over on Instagram, which you can see under his photo is _Scottsquatch. So if there's anything for everybody that has like followed you even all the way back to 2012, feel free to just say any last minute message to the people watching right now.
I think the first thing that comes to my head is that the people that have stuck around even before 2012, because that's when Video Game Sellers started, but when in 2011 and 10, when I really started doing any video game related videos, and before that when I was doing Halloween only videos, when I owned a Halloween prop company, those people that are still watching today and commenting and being a part of it is amazing, because my channel, while it got some success, I feel it's such a niche section of a niche section of a niche section, of YouTube. So the fact that like I came back and I had 3,000 to 5,000 people that were even regularly watching the videos when I came back was impressive, because for a channel to be gone for 2.5 years and then try to come back to have even a few hundred people, because I've watched it. I've seen other channels that have gone for as long as I have of not doing anything and then come back, and it's a struggle. And it's still been a struggle for me and for us making these videos, but it could be a lot worse, and I know it could be a lot worse. So it's amazing that you guys are still interested and still watching, because I don't know. I don't know if there's besides like 1 or 2 channels I can think of in my head, there's not much that from 10 years plus ago that I'm still watching on YouTube. So if I know that there's only a couple that I'm watching, that's probably similar for a lot of people, and if I'm one of your couple that you're still interested in or watching, then that's amazing.
And that is amazing to see that it's been a very long time that you have made content for YouTube, and whether it is just your own show or it's like a full team thing, it's good to see that you're still kicking it. But Scott, for however long that we've known each other for, it is a pleasure to be able to sit down and talk games or corn or whatever is going on in your life. But hopefully that we'll be able to catch up in the near future, maybe at next year's Southeast Game Exchange, and have like longer than 2 minutes time to be able to hang out for a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And then in year 2029 or 2030 when we do the next podcast.
Oh, God. Yeah, I've done YouTube for like 15 plus years. I don't know if I'm gonna last that long, but Scott, always a pleasure. Holy hell. Thank you for dropping by for the podcast, man.
Absolutely. Peace.